All right, so for anybody who hasn't seen Star Wars: The Last Jedi, we're going to talk about basically every aspect of the movie. If you haven't seen it, then you're probably not watching this anyway. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started. At the request of at least one of our friends, probably just one, Bobby and I were asked to give our opinions on Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and I thought the easiest way to do that would to be have an open conversation about it. So we got Bobby from Houston. I'm up here in Dallas, and let's just jump into it. So Bobby and I, we saw the movie together. Not opening night, right? Second night?
It was the second night, technically, yes.
Yeah. And you said when you walked out of the movie, we were trying to, gauge each other's first reactions, although it was super late, so we didn't have like a long conversation. But
Right.
you kind of had some mixed feelings, whereas it was weird because, like, right walking out of it, I was just like, that movie was awesome. And then I look over at you, and you were like, man, you had this this face
I don't
about
know if I
you.
said man, but you asked me, so what'd you think? And I said, it was a good movie.
You
That's
were
what I
kind of at a
said.
loss for words, though. You were like,
I didn't know what to say, honestly.
and
Because, go ahead.
I think it was the same thing at Force Awakens because we saw that together. Same thing, same place, and I think you had like a similar reaction to that where you were just kind of like, I don't know what to think. And
A-
go ahead.
actually, with The Force Awakens, I was actually walking out. I did have something to say. Like, that ending just ticked me off. Like, I walked out, instead of saying it was a good movie, like, my first reaction was, that ending sucked. Like, that kind of ruined the movie.
The,
Like at that moment, it ruined the movie for me.
yeah, I know. Yeah, everybody obviously wanted to see Luke, but didn't get
Yeah,
that. We got a lot more of him in this movie, but I
a
think
lot.
that's one of your big problems with the movie, though. Well, not that we
It's
saw him, but his character in general.
yes, yeah.
All right, so why don't we just start there with Luke then? So he obviously is disillusioned. He's isolated himself for X amount of years in the movie, and I thought his character was really well done. It wasn't what I thought he was going to be, but it makes sense. So, The Force Awakens, we find out that Luke is isolated himself on a planet for however long he doesn't want to be found. They find a map to his location, and ends with Rey getting there. So it wouldn't have made sense to me. I see one of the big gripes is like, oh, that Luke is, his disillusionment in The Last Jedi and not wanting to help, etc., is one of the things I see people being upset about because Luke, is the big hero of the original trilogy. So him to be sitting on the sidelines while all this evil is happening, a lot of people have a big problem with. But I thought that there's no other way it could go based on him isolating himself in The Force Awakens. It wouldn't have made sense for Rey to find him and then him to be like, "Oh, the galaxy's in peril? I had no idea. Thank God you found me." Like that wouldn't have made sense. So I don't think there was any way they could have gone with it that would have made sense with the Force Awakens that where Luke comes and saves the day.
Hmm. So where's your question?
Oh, so where's my question? So my question is, what about Luke did you not like? The Luke
Okay,
story, or the Luke character, I should say, not the Luke storyline, the Luke character.
no, the Luke. Look, the whole point of his being um, disillusioned and kind of given up hope, which is the whole theme. Even this movie did rail on hope. That the spark of hope. So hope is still the theme of Star Wars. That wasn't my gripe about him having lost his hope, having lost his his wanting to be Luke Skywalker Jedi Master. That wasn't it at all. My point was how he got to that point. That's where I disagree, and it's not about failure because everybody's like, well, you're against failure. No, that's Star Wars. I agreed with the guy. I posted a video just earlier today of a guy explaining a defense of the Last Jedi, and I agreed with the point. Like, um,
Basically, the
Luke,
point that the whole movie is about failure. The
right,
heroes
and
fail,
overcoming that
Poe
failure.
fails, Ray fails to turn Kylo. Um,
It's
Luke
it's a movie
Luke
of
fails
failures and
his
how
yeah
these heroes are dealing with that failure. And at this point that we see Luke, well, where we ended Force Awakens with Rey meeting Luke. At that point, when we see Luke, and then throughout this whole movie, he's dealing with his personal failure, which
Yeah.
he takes on a massive scale because he was the Last Jedi.
Hmm.
I had no problem with that. My problem and my issue was how he got to that point.
So your problem was with him turning Kylo to the dark side, as we see. Like it, he's kind of,
He
in my
basically
mind, he's
made
like
Kylo
directly
Ren.
responsible for
Correct.
Kylo Ren turning evil.
Correct.
I mean, they kind of hint to like, oh, Snoke had already gotten to him or something, but they don't really explain at all how. Like, was Snoke appearing in his dreams? Did he see Snoke physically? We have
That's the issue. That's
was
the
was
issue. This
Snoke.
movie did not address any of that. This
So
movie did not address any of that.
yeah, so I know you're also pissed about them not talking about Snoke at all. I
Well,
actually like that part of the movie, but I do agree that it's unclear to what extent Snoke is responsible for Kylo turning to the dark side. However, I would have been fine with them I am fine with the implication that it was basically Luke's fault that he turned to the dark side because he looks up at Luke. Luke's got the lightsaber at him, and you're a kid who's got obviously parental problems, daddy issues. Um,
well, family issues.
yeah,
Period.
family issues. Although it's
If
not,
you
we're not 100% sure. Did Han and I think actually maybe in Force Awakens it's mentioned Han and Leia split up after Ben goes to the dark side. So maybe he didn't have
well,
as many issues at that point. But either way, um, he sees his uncle, the guy he looks up to, Luke Skywalker, the legend, as he talks about himself multiple times in the movie, and he's like, oh my gosh, my idol wants to kill me. So obviously that would turn anybody's view sour, probably. But go ahead, what were you saying?
well, here's the thing. If we're looking at just this movie, if I were to just look at this movie as a center and just focus on this movie, it's a good movie. It's a great movie. It's entertainment through and through. It's got action. It's got all that. The characters are well driven. There's a point that they start in the movie, and towards the end of the movie, they have grown. They have
There's one
moved.
character that I don't like, or maybe two that I don't like in the
Yeah,
movie, but we'll get to
we'll get
that.
to that. But the main key figures, which are Kylo, Rey, Luke, and well, we
Poe
can
and
include
Finn.
Poe and Finn. But the three main ones are Kylo, Rey, and Luke, from my opinion, in this
Hmm.
movie.
Yeah. Well, and
Because
maybe Leia in this movie, although she doesn't really grow as much as she's just kind of like a there character.
she's a plot pusher.
Yeah.
She pushes the plot along. But here's the thing: looking at what the Force Awakens did with all the questions that it was creating and causing people that aren't even fans, just people that watch the movie, they're like, well, who's this? Who's that? Why is he there? Why is he doing that? And then you get to this point, and then all of what was raised in the Force Awakens was just literally like brushed off, and it's like, nah, don't worry about that. We're gonna go from here on.
Yeah.
And this is where I have a problem with Luke. If you read the books that are now canon, I'm not talking about the legends. I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
talking
I thought you
about
were about to talk about the old.
no, I'm
Okay.
talking about the new regime of books.
Hmm.
There's a Leia book out there. There's a Phasma book out there. There's the
I've seen like some
Aftermath.
summaries of them, but I haven't read them. Do you have them?
I do,
Oh, okay.
and
You
I've
have a
read
loan
them.
them to me.
Yes. Here's the thing. At the last book, Luke is already starting to train Ben.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yes. Yes. And now there's a book coming out that's literally focusing just on Luke
Gotcha. So they're
Skywalker.
gonna kind of fill in the blanks with.
Yes.
I'm not a huge fan of that because I think the movies should be able to stand on their own. But I mean,
That's that's
it's a big
that's a good
media
point, but
empire
I'm
at
not
this
even
point.
bringing that up.
Okay, yeah.
What I want to say though is in the books though, there is talk about Leia and Luke being children of Darth Vader.
Hmm.
And that blows everything up. And that's why Princess Leia, who goes on to be like a senator or like a really important figure in the government of the New Republic,
Hmm.
she's literally cast out
Hmm.
because they find out that she's Darth Vader's
Oh,
daughter.
so you're saying that in the book that's 7.5 or 6.5, movie plotline.
Yes.
So
Yes.
she is castigated because people find out that she's Darth Vader's daughter.
Yes, and
Okay.
that has serious implications within Han and Leia's relationship already with the stress that they were
Oh.
having. And then that's when Kylo finds out that he's Darth Vader's grandson.
So Kylo's already born at the point where the news media, CNN, finds out that
Yeah, the
that
Galaxy
Leia
CNN finds
is
out.
Vader's. That yeah. That
Correct.
okay.
Now then enter Force Awakens where Leia makes a comment to Han saying that Snoke had turned, when Han says
Yes,
Luke
Snoke got to
blamed
him or
himself.
something. She says,
Yes.
yeah, it was
So
Snoke. Snoke got to him. Yeah, whatever it is.
right. So then you jump from that, just a very small sentence that she says, and you go to this point where it shows the flashbacks from different perspectives.
I thought that was a
Uh,
really cool way to do it.
I
By the
thought it
way,
was cool. Yeah, I thought it was cool. You got
it was
Kylo's,
one side,
you
the
got
other side, and
Luke's,
then the truth.
and then you got the truth. But this is my key thing with Luke. Again, I will point out, and you can say that he's changed over all these years, and that's fine.
30 years.
But
Yeah.
the core center of Luke, again, was always hope. And when he might have realized that Kylo had these dark side inklings and he was struggling with the fact that he's Darth Vader's grandson, that he's having these dark side tendencies, instead of at a random moment just walking up and saying, after having visions of terrible things Kylo's going to do, ignite his lightsaber and have the inkling of a thought to kill Kylo, I do not buy that. I do not buy that. And yes, that creates Kylo Ren, and there goes Luke's failure. I just do not agree with that at
Gotcha.
all.
Okay, so
I
I
do not
see
agree.
your point, but I mean, to Yoda and Luke's conversation, he failed Kylo. I mean, he understands that he failed Kylo by igniting the lightsaber and having even in his even a brief thought of potentially killing a child, or I
Right.
don't know, maybe teenage Kylo. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows how old he was, but he
Yeah,
was
he's
he
like the
was
same age in the flashback. They try to make him like look younger a little bit with some CGI, but yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's been 30 years since we've seen Luke, so let's say that that's 20 years past is when we see the scene of him in the hut igniting the lightsaber. I mean, he said that he sees what Kylo will become and killing all the people that he loves and causing all this mass destruction. I mean, how could he not have a thought of I need to stop this? And then, like I said, and he says he had one thought and then immediately realized the mistake that he made and put the lightsaber down. Unfortunately, it was too late.
Yeah.
I
And
buy
again,
that.
let me put this in parentheses that the way they did it in the movie to placate us fans that
Yeah,
got upset about that,
yeah,
towards the end of the movie they wanted to make a point. Well, he picked up his lightsaber creating Kylo Ren. In the end, he went out without even holding up a lightsaber.
yeah.
So I get it. I get the whole. They're saying this movie's such a great thing because of the storytelling. I get it. I get what they did, and I appreciate it on that level. But as a Star Wars fan, the character of Luke, I just don't believe they did him justice in
Hmm.
that sense.
So I loved Luke's character, and I thought it was the best part, second best part of the movie. The best part of the movie is Kylo and Rey and their relationship, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later because I think we
Yeah,
both loved it, and I don't
yeah,
know anybody who saw the movie who didn't love it.
right, right.
But so I loved Luke. I love the line when he's teaching Rey about the Force, and he says that at the height of the Jedi's power, that's when the Sith rose.
I
So,
agree.
and he says, they were arrogant
Yep.
about, and we see in the prequels, they've got the massive republic. There's hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of Jedi across the galaxy. They are, they're running the ship basically. They're like a arm of the government. They're basically like a special elite, military force that will go do things for the government. Um, I don't know if George Lucas intended it this way because he's very into war and stuff like that and allegories with that. But I mean, they're kind of like a secret a CIA or something.
Hmm.
And Luke basically says that their arrogance is what caused the whole Sith, And so his point is me thinking that I can be the big, good guy brought upon uh, the Sith, Kylo, etc., and that's why the Jedi need to end. I loved how cynical he was about it. I loved that he was like anti-tradition about it. Um, I thought his character was awesome. I also loved the final scene with him. Obviously, when he force projects himself across the galaxy, he
which is a new force power that they introduced. But yes,
yeah, which I think is great.
it's
Um,
fine.
it kind of mirrors the way when he's fighting Vader in Return of the Jedi, he bests Vader, and then instead of killing Vader, he throws his lightsaber down and says, this doesn't matter. It's not about killing you. Um, I'm a Jedi, and I think still believe there's light in him. Yada yada. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. Whatever he says. And then he kind of also doesn't pick up a lightsaber and fight to win. His sacrificial moment is that he lets the resistance live on and uses the Force to inspire. And that final scene with the boy, I think, really drives it home that his whole point was the Force isn't just to lift rocks, which is one of the things he says to Rey. The Force isn't just lifting rocks, which is funny because they make her just lift rocks at the end, which was I thought they wasted
There's
Rey in the
there's a lot of
final.
things that are very much on the nose, but yes,
I think I think they wasted Rey in the final scene. We'll talk about that more later. Um, but his whole sacrifice was to inspire the galaxy with the Force, which is something that's never been done before. It's like one of the biggest most awesome uses of the Force ever. You don't right away realize that, but once you start thinking about what he did something that's not possible with the Force, which is take hundreds and hundreds of laser bullets at his face, which it wouldn't have made sense for him to be able to block them and stuff like that. My first reaction was like, why wasn't Luke there physically and he could have blocked all those lasers back and
it wouldn't have
gone
made sense.
crazy. It would have been extreme levels of heroism that would make everything else in the movies just not matter at all. It would be cool to see a super powerful Jedi like that, but if there was a potential for a Jedi to be that powerful, then it's just like it's like the character Superman. He's so strong, he has no weaknesses that it's hard to tell any compelling story with him. So
And yet, and yet, that's what he made everybody believe,
exactly. He made the whole galaxy believe that the
that he
Force and the
did
light
dodge
side of the
those.
Force is able to defeat the entire First Order, or is able to face down the First Order with a laser sword, like he says cynically in the cave, which I thought was great. Um, and he actually doesn't even lift the sword up to. I mean, well, he lifts it up, but he doesn't. There's no lightsaber on lightsaber combat. There's none of
No,
that.
he's dodging the whole time.
He's just dodging. He's pacifism and just kind of showing this is what. Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
It's a Obi-Wan Kenobi Darth Vader fight on
Yeah,
steroids. You
Obi-Wan,
know,
puts his
it
lightsaber away.
was
Yeah.
it was the whole scene where Obi-Wan was making time for Han and them to get away on the Death Star.
You know what I
Same
did?
thing.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think. I don't know how I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same mirror image of that. And Poe, again, on the nose says he's buying us time.
Hmm.
It's pretty obvious he is, but
Yeah.
okay, whatever. It's it's Disneyfied, but whatever. I agree. I love that whole scene, and that's what that I thought it was awesome.
So
Even
your one big concern is just that the Luke of the original trilogy, you don't buy that he would have attempted to kill Kylo.
I do not buy that, not
Okay.
for a second,
Well, I
not for a second.
disagree with you there because, like I said, it's like a very small moment of weakness. He just happens to. You gotta think he's the only Jedi left. I mean,
His
he's.
his whole mission for three whole movies, well, two, when he found out it was his father, his whole mission was to redeem his father, to save his father, who was Darth Vader, who destroyed the Jedi, who is the number one for everybody's knowledge, the
Mhm.
number one man under the Emperor, commanding all the Empire's forces. I mean, this guy was the bad guy of the galaxy, and yet he wanted to save him.
Yeah.
Here's his only nephew, his
No,
only
I
sister's
get what you're
only
saying.
son. His life lesson was he saved his dad.
Yeah. And yet
How
he
could he
doesn't
not think
think
the
the same
same
thing
for his
about Cal.
nephew?
So I
It
get
just
that, and I don't want to
doesn't.
speculate too much on things that they haven't told us about Luke and the motivations in the movie that's not in the movie. But potentially, I mean, Luke could be, training all these Jedi. He maybe gets a little to his head. He's the hero of the galaxy. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. He's the last Jedi. He's training. Maybe he just isn't thinking clearly. He has one brief moment of weakness. But
So
like I said, I don't think it
so
was
therefore, Luke is the one that betrayed Ben. Ben didn't betray Luke. That's what
from
happened.
the movie. That's what we know. Yes,
Yes, correct.
and obviously we wish that Kylo/Ben would have been a little bit more understanding, and instead of pulling the roof down on Luke, could have been like, "Hey, dude, what's up?" and could have talked it out. But if have to have a movie, so you have to have conflict.
I'm sure at that point, if Snoke was involved, as
Mm-hmm.
they said he was, I'm sure at that point, Snoke had convinced Kylo that Luke was jealous of his
Yeah,
power,
yeah,
and he was
and
going to kill
was
him.
going to kill him, and so
And sure
Kylo
enough,
sees it, thinks, "Oh my gosh, Snoke was right."
Snoke was right.
And
Hmm.
instead of Kylo having potential to be saved from Luke, which probably was maybe was at that point, he immediately thinks everything Snoke's been telling me is right. Luke's evil. He's jealous, and yeah, take him out. All right. So your
One more
next.
thing.
Oh, okay.
One more thing. One more thing. Again, I said the last part where Luke goes all out as a Jedi Master would. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I felt was uh, against it was still kind of a middle finger to us fans who loved this character. In all reality, he never really accepted his responsibilities. He never faced Leia. Technically, he was there in spirit, but Leia knew that that wasn't Luke at the end
Did
because she
she?
felt him. Well, yeah, because she said I felt him too. In other words, knowing that he was gone.
Yeah, they felt that he died, but I don't think it's clear whether or not they realized whether it was Luke or not out there.
You know what? You're right
You've seen it
because they
twice now,
were.
right?
Yeah, because you're no. Now
I
that I
need to
think
see
about
it
it, you're
again,
right.
but I'm not sure. I'm not sure who knew that that was really Luke out there or not. It might be Kylo is the only one in the galaxy that knows that that wasn't Luke.
You know what? Maybe you're right because I think when they have that little conversation between Leia and Rey, they're in the Falcon,
Yeah,
so they wouldn't have seen. No, yeah, you're right. It could be that they just thought that he died at that
yeah, we'll find out.
battle.
Who knows? But we'll find out.
Yeah. Anyway, move on to the second point.
Okay, so your second big least favorite thing of the movie in the hashtag Bobby Manifesto that was on Facebook
Right.
was Leia's use of the Force. Um, when I saw that in the movie, my first impression was this is awesome. I know, and I couldn't believe when I got home and was on Reddit and seeing everybody's comments and your comments and my sister-in-law's comments about it. They all thought it was hokey and stupid.
I
I thought
literally laughed. I laughed
that's
when
what you said, yeah. But
my cousin looked at me and I guess he didn't believe I was laughing,
uh
but I literally laughed and I looked at him. I'm like, I literally said, "Are they serious?"
I thought it
That's
was
what I. That's
awesome
what I said. I.
because as as a kid loving Star Wars, I always thought it's a shame that Leia has not shown any powers. And I thought the way they did it was great because it wasn't implied necessarily that Leia is super force powerful actively, but it was like she's on the brink of death and maybe even unconsciously uses the force to pull herself from the brink of death back onto the ship. I thought it was great. I thought it was all, and I was like, hell yeah, Carrie Fisher, last movie goes out like a badass with awesome force power that we've never seen before. That was my first reaction was this is awesome. So I was so surprised to hear everyone hated it. Almost everyone I know hated that part of the movie, and that was one of your least favorite parts of the movie.
Second
Yeah,
least.
but
Yes.
I mean, I get why people didn't like it because it was an out there power that we've never seen of the Force, yada yada. But I mean, we've only had what 8 movies now of Force users, Star Wars Force users. So I mean, like the Force is so it's such a abstract concept anyway that there's so many things they could do with it. And if you look at, like you said, books and games, all the canon and stuff, there's so many things that have been done with the Force that are, one-offs and weird. And so I didn't have any problem with it that way.
Yeah. Well, to me, it was only it was. First of all, they never led up into that part. Like
Hmm.
they never led up into that she could uh, mold or make use of the force in such a way.
Well, that's what I'm
But it
saying. I
was
don't think that they didn't need to because it wasn't her actively using the Force. It wasn't like she's like, oh, choking, and then, oh, I need to use the Force now because that would have been hokey. But I thought that it was like her unconsciously, like she didn't even know she was using the Force. She was just like not even aware of. It's like the Force using her. That's how that was
yes,
my first impression. That's how I saw it. And
and the only reactions we get from everybody else is that very initial reaction. They're like, "What the heck is going
yeah,
on?"
they're like, what the fuck is at the
Yeah,
door?
exactly. But then when she comes back, everybody's like, "Oh, it's Leia. She's up and running again." Like, and they never address the issue.
That's
Like
true.
they
It's a bit
never.
odd.
It's like that one scene, and then okay, let's move on.
Yeah, nobody
It
goes, "Hey Leia, can you use your awesome force power that you just used to do something else? Like help us get out of this situation?" Yeah, no.
and even herself. I mean, if she realized that she could do such a thing, why didn't she try to do something else?
Yeah, she never
It's
even really acknowledged that she
no,
did that.
it was that one scene, and to me it was too much all in one scene. If
Hmm.
they would have through the movie shown bits and pieces or something, and then caused that scene to happen, I'd be like, okay, I probably would have had the same reaction you did. But
Hmm.
it was too much all in that one scene. It's like, whoa, okay. It was like a cold ice water bucket. It's like,
Gotcha.
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was stupid. I thought it just was not. Again, just not done right or doesn't
Hmm.
done well. Again, but that's my expectation. I get it. I get the whole argument on the other side. It's fine. That's just our opinions. That's our
Yeah.
perspectives. But yeah, that was my second least favorite thing of the movie.
So, um, I had something else to say about the way she used the force and whether or not you liked it. But we'll move on. If I think about it, we'll come back. Okay, so their third thing was the castration, I'm quoting you, of anything and everything previous to Last Jedi. And I think you mentioned that a little bit in our little talk before we started talking about these main points, was
Yeah,
that this movie kind of says screw you to everything that happened in episode 7. So,
yeah.
first I'll tell you, or why don't you expand upon that and then I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Okay, well, are we just talking about in relationship with episode 7 or with episodes 1 through 7?
All of them, 1 through 7. Go for it.
All right. First thing right off the bat. Uh Anakin is not the chosen one. Period. Like there is no such thing as the prophecy. There's no such thing as the chosen one. It's the whole thing of balance of the force. That's all hogwash. There's no such thing. That's right off the bat what episode 8 completely threw out into the trash. If you want to debate that right now, go ahead. But that's
So, the
right
prophecy,
off
is
the
that
bat.
even mentioned anywhere
No
except the prequels?
episodes.
I mean, does 4, 5, and 6 mention the prophecy and bringing balance to the Force?
No, but Yoda and Obi-Wan have little discussions about Luke being their last hope.
Yeah, but
And then Yoda says, no, there is another
what? Yeah.
because she was a Skywalker.
Well, no,
The
because
whole
she's.
emphasis was about the
So,
Skywalker lineage.
so I will definitely debate you on that. So
Okay.
he says there's another, as in there's another person that's Force sensitive, able to use the Force that we know about. I am complete anti the thought that there is anything special about the Skywalker DNA that makes them super special other than they happen to be the heroes of the story. Luke Skywalker does. Um, I think that in the original trilogy, it's heavily implied that the Force is in everybody, and it's like I said, like Obi-Wan says, it's through us, binds us, yada yada. Everyone could potentially use the Force if they were tapped into it enough. And yeah, they said the Force is strong with this person, but in the original trilogy, it's not implied that your DNA makeup is what makes you strong in the Force. They only bring that in the prequel trilogy, and I think that's terrible.
Unfortunately.
And I think it's
Unfortunately.
terrible, and I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that people don't like. Qui-Gon Jinn with the midichlorian thing. He's like, "Ooh, let me test your blood to see how great you are in the Force." And I mean, it goes back to like Luke said about how arrogant the Jedi were in the past in that time. And he says, the Force doesn't belong to the Jedi. The Force is everything. The Force is through every living thing. Um, and I think that, like I said, I am complete anti the camp that says, "Oh, well, the Skywalkers are the chosen family and they're the strongest ones because they're Skywalkers." Yada yada. I think that's hogwash. Not a fan of that.
But that's what the story of Star Wars has been
The
has made.
prequels, the
Well,
prequels, which are terrible movies objectively.
if you look through episode 4, even because Lucas honestly didn't have all of that pictured in his mind.
Yeah, for sure.
He created one story and then he expanded
Yeah,
upon
he
it.
created one story about a kid on a planet who goes on an adventure. It's the classic hero tale. And then in
Right.
episode 5, the kid has a reckoning with his father, which is also another big trope. It has nothing to do with generational power and genetic makeup of the strength connection of the Force. And he brings that in the prequels. I think it's terrible, and I love that they shat on that notion in 7 and even way more so in 8.
Oh yeah, they definitely. That's what I mean. They definitely
So you
threw
don't
that
like that.
out.
I think
And they,
that's one of the best parts of the movie, or
well,
best
I mean,
themes of the movie, is that it doesn't matter who you are, or what you've done. It matters what you can do and what you can become.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, based off the whole fact that Anakin wasn't born in a normal way.
Also, a terrible
Um,
part of that movie.
Again, he wanted to throw in some religious metaphors in
The
there.
fact that
Whatever.
Anakin is Force Jesus, yeah, is actually really terrible. He's
Yeah,
even more
because
than Force. Well, no, because he has a mother, yeah, obviously,
yeah,
but no
yeah,
father.
but it's the twisted version in the sense that he turns all flat out evil. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's the anti Jesus version. But that's what supposedly he wanted to make it such a tragedy.
Hmm.
But again, to me, it threw out again. It made Luke Skywalker unimportant. It made
Okay, we
Darth
just talked
Vader
about how
unimportant.
Luke Skywalker did the most epic thing of all time with the Force. So, and legendarily inspired the entire galaxy. So, I wouldn't say him being unimportant is a valid point.
In the overall scheme of things.
The
For
overall scheme of
what?
things, he just inspired the entire galaxy to become Jedi, as we see in the final scene with the boy with the broom looks up to the stars after they're literally playing Luke Skywalker versus the Force Order with toys. They have a toy of Luke Skywalker and the toys of the ATs, or what are they called? The gorilla ones? Do you know the official name? Are they just
At
gorilla ATSTs or whatever?
I don't know the actual name of them.
Gotcha.
I
I'm
haven't
sure
gotten
there's
into
some
that.
official title to them, but they're literally playing Luke Skywalker. They are me and you. They are kids playing Luke Skywalker, and that he's like the most important figure in Star Wars.
And he's done with.
He's a Force ghost now. He became one with the Force. He told Kylo Ren, "I'll see you later, kid." Which
See
I
you
thought,
around, kid.
"See you around, kid." I thought that was a great
He
line.
used Han's line. Yeah,
Oh, does Han say "See you around, kid"?
he says it to Luke twice, and once in Empires and once in Jedi
Oh,
Return of the Jedi.
that's awesome. I love
So
that.
he used it on his son, on
Man,
Kylo.
that's actually like vindictive, knowing Kylo's relationship with Han to use a Han saying,
I'm sure Han told that to Ben. I'm sure Han used
"Yeah,
that
he
same line to
must have."
Ben.
Yeah, if he used it twice in the movies, then it would be implied that that's like a thing that he
That's
uses. That's
his
great.
thing to say. Yeah. I don't know, man. To me, Darth Vader was a central figure of the original trilogy. He was supposed to be. They try to make him the central figure
They
of the
did.
first 1 through 3, but
No, oh, I thought you were going to say of Force Awakens. They tried to make him a big part of Force Awakens, kind of like in a background sense,
Oh yeah, we're with Kylo
with
wanting to be
Kylo being
like Darth
obsessed with
Vader.
him.
Yes, yes. But okay, well, let's touch that a little bit. In the Force Awakens, again, Snoke and Darth Vader were mentioned over and over again in that movie, and it's like with Snoke's death and a lot of stuff that happens in Force in the Last Jedi, all of that just gone. It's forget about that stuff and let's move on to other stuff. Is
So,
what they basically said in Episode 8.
so I hear you on that. However, the point is, and the reality is, we can't make 10 more movies with Mark Hamill. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to be the main character of 10 more Star Wars movies. Uh, the torch is being passed, whether he likes it or not. Disney is going to use this franchise. They're going to make 100 movies in the next 100 years of Star Wars. That's just going to happen.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
They have to transition away from the old characters and bring in the new characters. I actually think they should have done it sooner. I think they should have killed off all the old characters in the first one. I think dragging Luke this far into this new trilogy is actually a disservice to the new characters, just because Luke has now done this huge thing. Although they didn't do it terribly because, like you said, he wasn't active in it and he just kind of does that one act. But they can't use, obviously can't use Carrie Fisher anymore. Can't use Han and Luke for the next 20 years in movies. So they have to eventually write. They have to write a story that takes them out of the equation. Period.
That's
I think they
fine.
did a good way to do it. But another thing, like you said, oh well, they're just ignoring the whole prophecy and the chosen one and stuff. I mean, what do you want them to do? Make 30 movies about Skywalker descendants for the next 30 years? Like, oh, well, now let's have a story about Kylo and Kylo's kid, and let's have a story about Kylo's grandkid, who's still the line of Darth Vader. I mean, they have to rip the Band-Aid off at some point. They have to say, look, we can't make one story about one family be you know, this story to move forward the whole time.
And that's fine. However, from the lips of Kathleen Kennedy, she said all 9 episodes, and even they were talking about even another trilogy, episodes 10 through 12, about still being a Skywalker story. With Episode 8, that's a
Kylo
bunch
Ren
of
is a
baloney.
Skywalker.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not. It's you can say it's about him, but it's really, in my opinion, Rey's the central character of the new regime.
No, Kylo is.
Nah,
Kylo's the
he's
central character. It was obvious, especially like we just said, the final confrontation, the final 20 minute. I don't remember how long of the movie. Rey plays almost no part at all in that part of the movie. From the time she leaves the throne room, she lifts some rocks at the very end, and that's it. She plays no central part in the main.
yes, but where does the movie end?
Okay, so obviously she's going to be the hero figure in the next movie, and she's the new Luke, quote
She's
unquote.
right in the middle. Yep.
But like I said, to say it's not a Skywalker story just because she's not a Skywalker doesn't hold up for me. It still could be a Skywalker story. But like I said, I don't want 10 more movies of Skywalkers. I'm fine with there being, Ben Solo because of the relationships he has. I think it's interesting. But if all the main characters are, you know, people were thinking Rey was going to be like a descendant of Obi-Wan or of Darth
I thought that was
Plagueis
stupid. I thought
or
that was even
or
stupider.
Skywalker somehow. I thought none of those made sense. I loved the reveal of Rey's parents in this. I thought, I mean, that was my reaction after Force Awakens was I hope Rey is nobody because if they're just gonna make 100 movies about Skywalkers and Luke's kids and grandkids and great grandkids and yada yada, it makes it meaningless. But I loved that she was nobody, and we'll talk about that more when we talk about the things we liked about the movie. We're still discussing the things we didn't like. Um, so, like I said, I think you're completely wrong about that it's bad that this movie killed the past, as in Kylo's words, kill the past, let it die or whatever he says. I think it's great. They have to start fresh somewhere. They gave Luke the best send off they could have. Of Luke literally just inspired the galaxy. He's a legend forever. Became one with the Force. Um, that's the best send off they could have given him. Um, I thought it was great.
Oh yeah.
I haven't swayed you.
No,
We'll see. Well, you'll come around 5 years from
I'm
now, and
sure.
we're rewatching all the new trilogy. You'll say, you know what? I'm glad that Kylo and Rey are the main focus of the movie. All right, so let me see your little conclusion about what you didn't like. We already talked about you being mad at The Force Awakens for not seeing Luke. Um, we already talked about Luke's character and not trying to turn Kylo when he turned Darth Vader. I understand that. Um, so let's talk about plot holes because I see this a lot. That people say that the plot holes in the movie are what did it for me. And a big one, and the first one you mentioned in your manifesto, I'll just call it a review. And your review is about Luke secluding himself on the Jedi, the planet, the first Jedi temple,
Octu.
Octu, and yet left a map for himself to be found. So it's kind of like a conflicting narrative.
The plot hole or the contradiction is he says, "I came here to die" 3 times in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I came here to die. I came here to die. Then why on earth did you leave map behind for people to come find you? That makes absolutely no
All
sense.
right, so they don't spell it out for us. However, um, the first scene of Force Awakens when Poe receives the map from whatever the character's name is, the three-eyed raven in Game of Thrones. I forget his
Yeah,
name. Super famous
yeah,
actor.
yeah.
Um, he's receiving a map to the Jedi Temple. And when they talk to Han after they meet up with Han, Rey and Finn, they say, they're talking about how to find Luke, and he said the people that knew him best thought that he would go to the Jedi Temple. So they're not looking for a map to Luke Skywalker. They're looking for a map to the Jedi Temple because they assume that's where their Luke is.
How is it that Kylo, his mission in Force Awakens was to hunt down Luke Skywalker?
He
How did
also
Kylo know that?
He also thinks, like Han said, everybody who knew him best, which would include Kylo, thought he went to the Jedi Temple. But Kylo wouldn't know where the Jedi Temple is. Nobody would know. Luke had to seek it out. Luke went and sought out the records of history to go and find it, and eventually got there. So I don't think that's a
Right.
plot hole at all. I think it's
Where did he leave the second half?
what do you mean
Where did he leave the second half of the map?
with R2D2. So
Why would he have done that?
because R2D2 is his droid that navigates him
And he left it
wherever.
with Leia. R2 was left with Leia.
Okay.
So Leia always had the second piece to the map.
Obviously not. If she would have always had the second piece of the map, then. So you're saying that she had both pieces of the map?
No, she did not have. They had to. That's why she sent Poe Dameron on intrepid mission. That's what the crawl text, The Force Awakens,
Mm-hmm.
says. That Leia herself sent.
Oh, yeah.
How to? Yeah, well, it doesn't say Poe Dameron. It says one of their best fighter
Yeah.
pilots um, in search for the piece of the map.
Mm-hmm.
And to find Luke. That's what the crawl text says. To find Luke, because the very first sentence
Yeah, but
of
the
the
crawl
crawl
text
text
isn't going to
says
say
Luke
to
disappeared.
find the Jedi Temple, comma, a place where Luke Skywalker is believed to be,
No, but there is way too much, um, not coincidences. There's way too much
The
evidence
Force
that
works in mysterious ways, Poppy.
they knew that he was there, and he left behind a way to get to him.
I don't think
So
he left it behind.
I mean,
It's like a
the
travel manifesto that R2 has in his box that
R2 didn't go with him to the temple.
he had to find it somehow. He has to use a computer, I would assume. And so he gets the coordinates, finds out where it is, then erases that part of the coordinates from R2's memory, leaves
And
R2 behind because he doesn't want R2 to go die on the planet with him. He just wants to go alone, and erases that part of the memory. And then, off screen between 6 and 7, the Resistance tries to piece together the puzzle, aka the map, to find where that is. So if they saw in R2's records a big map of the galaxy and then a big blank space, obviously they're going to assume Luke's there. See what I'm saying? So so it's like a travel log. I'm just assuming. I don't know the inner workings of GPS in the Star Wars universe, but I'm assuming R2's got a travel log, or at least, that map with a big piece removed, which is what Luke would have done if he didn't want them to find him. He
but he
removes
gave
the
it to
big piece.
but he
He didn't
gave
give
it
it
to
to
someone
somebody.
else.
He didn't. Who
Yes, he
did he give
did.
it to? And who did he give it to?
That's what the guy said. Hopefully, this will make things right. And when he
He
handed it
doesn't.
over to
He
Poe,
doesn't say Luke Skywalker once gave me this in case things got really bad. That's not what he says.
no, but he heavily implied that it was given to him.
I don't think so at all. I think it's implied more so that they've been working on it. They've got it and need to give it to him. Either way, I don't think
I
it's a plot hole or a
I
contradiction.
I think it is, but it to me it's not a meaningful plot hole, but
Yeah.
it's a plot hole to me. It's a point. Uh,
Like I
I
said,
don't.
it would make zero sense whatsoever to have Luke have secluded himself on that island. Um,
I think the more logical answer would have been, instead of going to go die there, going to go find answers.
yeah, but like you said,
That's
that wouldn't make sense to him sitting on the sidelines while the First Order destroys the entire Republic. It wouldn't have made sense for him to go,
well, that's
unfortunately, they just destroyed 5 planets with a new Death Star uh, while I sat around looking for answers. No, that wouldn't have made
well,
sense. The only
that's
way that it would have made sense was what they did, which was he's intentionally staying out of it because he doesn't want to make things worse.
that's what Yoda did when he went to Dagobah. He went to go hide from the Empire. At the same time,
That's because the Empire was stronger than Yoda, and Yoda was not able to fight.
okay, and Obi-Wan did the same thing with going to take care of Luke. He was
Yeah,
literally on Tatooine just to oversee Luke.
yeah.
Um, so again, showing the importance of Luke Skywalker, but it is what it is. Um, I'm going to move on to the other plot hole
Okay.
that are strictly to the movie.
Yeah.
Why was Canto Bite even necessary?
So I understand that. I was thinking about it the other day. They had to have something else besides just the space battles and the final scene. And if they wouldn't have had Canto
There's
Bite, they wouldn't have
so
had any other scene. Um,
First of all, why would Holdo? Okay, I understand the whole fact that Poe Dameron is a wild card and he's a office seat type of guy.
mhm.
Let's go attack, let's go attack, let's go attack. But at the same time, Poe did what he did because she flat out refused to tell him the plans, and he's technically second in command after Leia. So
Well, obviously he's not second in command after Leia because they said it's
they
obvious. Admiral Holdo is so. I have some problems with the character Holdo also. However, I don't have any problem with her telling Poe, "Mind your place, biatch. I don't need to tell you anything. You're a subordinate. Go with the plan and shut your mouth." I have no problem with that because
she didn't
that's
ever
what
say the
happens
plan.
in real life. No, that is basically what she said. She basically said, "I don't care what you think. I'm not telling
Oh,
you the plan. You just got a bunch of people killed because you did your own thing. Be quiet. I'm in control." And him not following her orders got a bunch more people killed. I have no problem with people who are like, "Oh, if she would have just told him, then he wouldn't have done all that." It's like he didn't deserve to know after what he just pulled, after defying direct orders from Leia.
Okay. Well, then how did they talk to Maz Kanata? Like, when, in what situation did Poe Dameron know Maz Kanata?
I, I got no answer for you there.
I mean, I could have said maybe Finn, but Poe was the one talking to Maz.
I mean, obviously she's some bigger character that people know about. I mean, I don't remember exactly her ties to the Resistance in Episode 7. Han goes and seeks her out.
Yeah. But then
So,
just everything, man. Like the whole scene. Like first of
Canto
all,
Bite.
it was a major plug of we need to save the animals.
Yeah, it was very political. Canto Bite in general was
Very
very
political.
political.
I mean, it's anti warmongering.
Super anti-war,
Yeah, I mean,
super animal
literally, it was a
rights.
political statement that didn't really need to be in the movie at all.
I don't mind political statements in movies, and even in Star Wars, it's not a huge deal. But this one was just so hit you over the head, obvious political statement that it was just poorly done.
No,
I agree. Canto Bite was probably the worst part of the movie. Um, I liked it for Finn's character, uh, and I didn't mind the scene with DJ, the slicer played by Benicio del Toro. I
he did
didn't
a fine
mind. I
job.
thought he was good. I love the like
Yeah,
stutter that he had. I thought he was a good character and was interesting. Um, and I liked when he was like, yeah, they sell weapons to the First Order, but they also sell weapons
to the
to the
resistance.
Resistance. He's like, doesn't matter to
It's
them. Money's money,
yeah,
and war is war. I liked that, but they went so over the top. She's like, everyone here sells weapons to the First Order, and she's like, that's the only way to get this much money. It's like, is there no commerce in the entire galaxy
yeah,
except for
exactly.
weapons trading? It's like that doesn't make any sense.
Well,
Um,
and it did away with all the huts and stuff. I mean, because Jabba the Hutt
yeah, it would have been
wasn't
a
the only
perfect place
hut,
for a hut
right?
on Canto Bight. It would have been great. Yeah, they definitely and that's one of the criticisms that I did see that I kind of agreed with. There was like no Twi'leks, there was
Yeah.
no huts. There's a lot of alien characters that are kind of like known to the fandom that weren't there. Um, I mean, there were some cool
And
looking
they don't have
creatures.
to be,
Yeah, for
but
sure. But
it
why
just
not? Why not throw them in there to make it, you know, it's a little
make a
callback,
little more sense. Yeah, yeah.
or make it
But
just fit more in the universe.
and I get it that it was supposed to be a character development for Finn, and it was supposed to cause a spark of romance between him and
That was
Rose,
terrible. There was no connection with them on the screen.
but it was not done well at all. And no fault to the actor who plays Finn, and maybe not even the one that plays Rose, but they just it was either poorly written, poorly directed, or it just
Yeah, I
shouldn't
don't
have
think they
ever
had a
been.
lot of connection.
But it just
I didn't have a
I
problem
get
with
why
the
they did it, but it
actress
just
that played
again,
Rose.
it to me it was something
Oh, you cut out.
that
Oh, there you go. You're back. Having some connection
you
issues
still
with.
there?
Yeah, your face is stuck, but I hear you. Oh, call failed. Let me get you back. Call again.
What happened, sir?
I'm not sure. It's probably all your fault.
Probably,
I'll try to
probably.
edit that out, but if we can't edit it out, no big deal. Um, we were talking about Canto Bite and its terribleness.
Well, I was finishing it up with saying that I get why they did it, but it's just to me they could have done something else. They could have done something else instead of that scene.
The actress who played Rose wasn't terrible, but the character writing for Rose was terrible.
Yeah,
The worst part of the entire movie for me was the whole save the animals shtick, and not because I don't like animals. Obviously, save the animals. Everybody likes animals.
No.
It was so hokey whenever they tear up Canto Bight, which I thought was a cool scene. You know, the animals running through the city and tearing it up. I thought that was cool.
Great CG work. Yeah.
Yeah, but when they release them all like into the wild, first of all, I'm like, look, the city's like right there. They're just gonna come capture these animals
Capture them
again.
all over again.
They've
Yeah.
obviously got a big
Yeah.
security force that's chasing you. They're just gonna
There
capture
was
these
no
animals
resolution.
again, and they're like, oh, it was worth it to tear up Canto Bight. They're like, well, we failed our mission, and the entire resistance is about to be obliterated because we messed it up. But it was worth it because we saved the animals. That's literally what they say.
Temporarily.
And then worse than that, she then pulls the saddle off of the one they were riding and she goes, "No, now it was worth it."
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a part where I literally laughed in the theater because I was like, "Holy crap, that's so over the top on the nose."
Yeah.
Literally bludgeoning you with animals are awesome, save the animals kind of thing. The political statement, like you said, it was so over the top. It was laughably bad.
Yeah.
Let's stick on the Finn and Rose because we haven't talked about them basically at all, and
Okay.
that kind of speaks to the point about them not really being major players in this story. Um, it's unfortunate
Yeah, because I
because
like Finn.
I
Finn's
think that
cool.
they could have, instead of having Rose as a character at all, they could have just had Poe and Finn go to the planet themselves. Poe and Finn go to Canto Bight together,
Uh-huh.
and I think the interactions there could have been great. And it probably would have been a better romance than Finn and Rose. A lot of people have speculated, or were speculating between 7 and 8, that there was potentially some either
That Poe
bromance,
is gay.
bromance
Yeah.
or gay romance, which I would be fine with, no big deal, um, if that's what they want to go with. But they've complicated Finn's romance status to a very high degree at this point.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought it would have been great if Poe would have gone because they wouldn't have had to bring in this new character. They could have melded some storylines and freed up space for some other stuff that they could have done. I'm not saying it was bad, but God, that whole "now it was worth it" scene, so bad.
Yeah.
But like I said, talking about Finn and Rose, I liked Finn's character progression from now to then. Basically, he still wants to run, but his reason for wanting to run this time is because he uh, is
Wants to
worried
save
that they're
Ray.
going to get to Ray. Yeah.
Yeah. He
So
wants to
he
save
wants
Ray.
to run to save Ray, which is so he's still a coward and he's not part of the resistance, like officially, but he's got something to hold on to, something to fight for, which he didn't have in 7. He had nothing to fight for, so he was just a coward. Now he's a coward, but also wants to help his friend out. By the end of the movie, he goes to sacrifice himself for the resistance because he realizes, we're in this much bigger fight. We've got to, make sacrifices, yada yada. He goes to sacrifice himself, and then the worst character in the movie, Rose, denies him to sacrifice himself. The scene makes no sense from a narrative point of view, but it also makes no sense from just like a physical point of view. They're charging all these guerrilla ATSTs or whatever we're calling them now. They're charging them. The ATSTs at this point just have them. They're like point blank. He's charging into that big laser, and he's just about to get there, and then she crashes into him, and then they're just sitting there
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Like no one's
a
gonna
couple
blast him to
minutes.
pieces.
Nobody's gonna just shoot a non-moving target. Um,
And then the
she,
awkward kiss.
yeah, the awkward kiss is obviously super weird, and Finn's like, "What just happened to me?" It's like yeah, but
And a
not
soap opera faint.
so. Oh God, the faint is that is poorly acted. That's true. Um, but yeah, they're not shooting them when they're obviously could have just shot them and blown them up. But even more than that, it's like she denied him. Like if he would have got blown that up, then from a strategic point of view, Finn losing his life for that thing to be blown up was a good idea, probably. Although
It
Poe
would have
told him
done
not
some
to.
damage.
Poe told
Yeah.
him not to. But I mean, it was just so hokey.
Well, again, that shows Poe's growth,
Yeah, no, you're right.
where
Because at the beginning of the movie, he
he's
said
like,
he
"Let's go
gets called
balls
off, and he's
out."
like, "Hell no, we're going to take down the destroyer." And they do take down the destroyer, but they lose a lot of people. And so that's
Right.
kind of the same thing. Yeah, I can see that. Like they're take down the big laser, but they lose too many people, and they don't want to do that. So I
So he's
get that.
like, "Back off."
Yeah.
And yeah, I get it.
Okay, so, but
Um,
I still won't concede the point that Rose's part of that is really terrible in hokey.
yeah, it was forced. It was too forced.
Super forced.
And had they probably gone through a different type of journey together, it would have probably been different. But
Mm-hmm.
it was from the very beginning scene, like where he's like, yes, I'm hero, like because she's like worshiping him
I thought that was
basically.
great because he's like thinking he's nobody, but she's like, you're a
No,
resistance hero. I thought that
yeah,
was really cool because he's waking up at this point from his injuries in Seven, and he's still like thinking, I gotta leave, and she's like, you're Finn. I thought that was really cool. Little
it started off that way, but that's what I mean. From the very beginning, it starts off in a way that you're expecting something, and then they force all this other crap, and it just falls so flat because it had such good potential.
mhm.
And just
Also,
yeah,
one thing to note before we move on, where he is noticed and recognized as a hero of the resistance. Also, Rey is kind of noticed that way. So we'll talk about Rey and Kylo next because that's, I think, both of us the best part of the movie.
yeah,
But Rey at the end when she meets Poe for the first time, funnily enough, they've been in two movies now together. They only meet at the very end of the second one.
yeah,
She says, "I'm Rey," and he goes, "I know." Like he's like the top guy in the Resistance at this point.
hmm,
He's probably the most famous guy in the Resistance besides Leia, just in general, because he's known as like the awesome pilot, yada yada. And for him to say to her like, "Oh, I know who you are," that's kind of like another like callback to Finn, where he's like he doesn't really think much of himself, but he's got some clout and people think highly of him.
right.
Um, so anything else we want to crap on the movie before we talk about the good things? We've talked for an hour literally about all the bad things, although
We
we
are
disagree a little bit. So
we are far in the future of the history of Star Wars, where we're able to hyper travel and put little data into the computer, Navicomputer, and be able to jump from one place to another, and yet a human being has to stay behind in a ship to fly it. Where are the droids? Where's the autopilot? Like, can't why did she have to stay on the ship? That may other than doing that final act. I mean, it's just
okay,
a
so
droid could have done that.
one of the
BB-8
most
could have done that.
autumn. You're talking about the one of the most awesome scenes of the movie,
No, the scene was awesome.
visually
It was
stunning,
amazing.
amazing, where Admiral Holdo commits the ultimate sacrifice, kills herself to light speed herself into
Completely decimate the armada.
yeah. But
Yeah.
real quick, I don't think she did decimate the Armada. She hit Snoke's ship, if I'm not mistaken, and
No, I thought so too the first time around. The second time I saw it, you literally see ships disintegrating around the ship, around the big ship.
so she hits the
So
big ship and she only splits it in half. She doesn't destroy it.
she splits off the wing, like it's like a
Oh, just
delta.
like a wing. Okay.
Yeah, and she completely cuts off the right side of the
So she
ship.
doesn't destroy the big destroyer, but she does
No,
destroy
everything
some
around
side
it.
ships. Okay.
Yes, yes,
So so I've seen two big points that people bring up about this scene that it doesn't make sense. First of all, it doesn't matter if it makes sense because narratively and visually and storytelling wise, it's awesome. And that's all that matters in a movie, honestly.
that's fine.
It's
Yeah,
awesome. So, first of all, it doesn't matter. Second of all, I'm still going to defend it anyway because for her to stay behind, yada yada. The Resistance needs everybody they can get, including droids. Droids in Star Wars aren't necessarily something you just go pick up at the supermarket, from my understanding. I mean, a good droid, C3PO, for instance, was built by a super whiz kid, but all the other droids we don't see them like super mass produced or anything. So I don't know how much more important a person is than a droid to the Resistance, for instance. So to say, oh well, can't a droid just go back and do this thing? I think is a little. Who cares whether or not they could? Maybe they couldn't. Maybe it did require a human to light speed into.
But again, at that point, when the decision was made, there was no idea or thought of light speeding into the ships. The whole point was to get away from the ships into the planet
Well, and she was
Drax.
yeah, and she was piloting it so she could make sure.
Not Drax.
Well, she was piloting it so
Uh,
she was trying to
Crate.
draw their attention. So somebody needed to be piloting it. I mean,
Well, maybe now that I think about it, maybe this is like a stretch, but maybe so that they could see some sort of life form signature inside the ship.
I mean, either way,
Maybe.
I mean, you can't you can't autopilot it as well as a human being would be able to pilot it. Go here, maybe try
The
to
whole
maneuver,
movie
whatever
they
it
were
is.
the whole movie they were literally just going in a straight.
Yeah, I thought
I
it was a
mean,
little weird.
they were going
They
in
could
a
have done that a
straight
little differently.
line. Like they weren't even going through an asteroid field. I mean, there was no other. They were literally playing chase the whole movie through at a. It just, I don't know. I just thought the whole premise of them, first of all, just chasing them like they were, and then to end up with, no, Leia, you go, I'll stay. Uh, the history behind those two characters, they have been friends since little after Return of the Jedi. So there's 30 years of friendship there, and
But we don't see any of it.
no, and most people don't know about
Yeah.
it. So it's just I don't know.
So my only problem with the scene is that, as a lot of other people have said, Admiral Akbar should have done it, or Leia.
It would have made more
Um,
sense for Admiral Akbar to do it.
if they're not going to do Leia, then they should have done Admiral Akbar to do it.
Yeah,
Um, because he's a character that's from the other movies. He's one of the highest generals. They could
yeah.
have, yeah. Holdo doesn't really have a lot of clout, I should say, maybe in the movies. I mean, we literally see her in this movie, and while she's an all right
First
character,
time.
it's the first time we see her. She saves the whole Republic. I mean, I don't have a huge problem with it, but they could have done it a little bit better. But like I said, I think that's one of the most awesome scenes in the movie.
No,
And
when that scene happened, everybody in the room was dead quiet.
yeah,
Like it was
there's no
that's
audio also playing
well,
during that scene.
it's utter silence, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the point. It makes you like literally suck your breath in and go, "Holy crap, that's beautiful."
yeah, that was beautiful, awesome.
So I mean, I thought it was great. It's just the reasons behind it was just kind of stupid, but okay.
All right, so real quick, did we want to touch on Leia? Um, I've seen some people upset about that they didn't kill off Leia. Um, but
I don't see a problem with that. I just knowing that she passed away. Unfortunately, like I said, I mean, I didn't. Ever, no one knows these people in person. Like I've never met
yeah,
Carrie Fisher. I don't know her personally. I don't know her whole story and who she is. But it's still tragic to hear when someone passes, no
hmm
matter who it is. But she passed away before the movie was wrapped up.
filming had
They
already been done.
well, yes and no. They still did some reshoots after.
Yeah, but do
Uh,
you know the massive amount of reshoots? So the problem that a lot of people have said is like, oh, well, they should have killed her off in the movie, either during when she's in space or have her turn the ship around and destroy, yada yada. But the amount of reshoots, first of all, that would have to take place to kill her off in that space scene would be basically have to reshoot 60% of the movie because she's in almost every scene. Uh, with the space in the space scenes, and people are still they'd have to really reshoot most of the movie because people reference her, talk to her, she's in scenes. There would have to be a whole plot point about, oh my god, we just lost Leia in a sentimental moment and stuff. It's not feasible whatsoever for them to have reshot any amount of this movie, for her to die in the movie. So anybody saying that is insane. She,
No, and that's fine. But I'm saying from the very beginning, I didn't see a point for her. I mean, the biggest point that she had in the movie was in Return of the Jedi, as far
mhm,
as the role that she played,
yeah.
um, and how she impacted the other characters. Return of the Jedi was her main influence,
Well,
if you
now
will.
this one is. I mean, she was more influential in this one than even Return of the
Yeah,
Jedi, just because she's
then
like the leader of the Resistance.
right, right. But I, I don't know. I mean, if I had the choice between Han, Leia, or Luke, I think Han was perfect choice for Episode 7 to go out. I honestly think it probably would have been better for Leia to go out this movie, just because it would have affected Kylo Ren a lot more than it being Luke, in my opinion. Because I mean, it even showed the struggle that he had. He could not fire upon his mother. He
Yeah.
couldn't do it. So it would have impacted him, I believe, a lot more because he still had love for her,
Hmm.
whereas with Luke he had hatred already.
Yeah.
So with Leia being the one to go, that would have probably cemented even more his anger, his dark side, his evil. I don't know. Again, if you want to talk about storytelling, to me it would have made more sense for Leia to be the one to go out than
Hmm.
than than Luke. But
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
have too much problem with that.
or take them both out, or take them both
Yeah,
out. I
in
mean,
episode 9, I'm curious to see what they do. I think that the best thing to do is just to have her pass away off screen and just be like, oh, I think the best thing to do for episode 9 is a time skip because of the events in 8 don't really ally themselves to a big confrontation happening anytime soon because of the way the resistance is in shambles. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to be able to challenge the First Order at this point. So I think they should do some kind of like, oh, 10 years later thing, and then like, oh, 5 years ago, remember Leia passed away, unfortunately. I think that's the best way to do it at this point. I don't think trying to CGI her in the movie or anything would be very, very good.
it's a tough choice. I mean, you're gonna get there's no win
Uh-huh.
situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna piss a lot of people off if you just kill her off in the crawl text. You're gonna piss some people off if you just kill her off in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then you're gonna piss a lot more people off if you just CGI her through the whole movie. There's no win situation with Leia, and that sucks. I mean, again, I feel more sad about just Carrie Fisher passing away than the character.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
and it is what it is. That's
Hmm.
the show must go on.
All right,
But
so let's talk about the your favorite things of the movie, and then we'll finish up with what we want to see in 9 a little bit, or maybe we'll do a different video about that because this video is already an hour and 12 minutes, and nobody's gonna
yeah,
watch the whole thing anyway.
no,
So we'll
probably
do that
not.
in a separate video. So your top 3 favorite things. Number one, and it's my number one, is the fight scene with Kylo and Rey in the throne room immediately after he kills Snoke. So I think that whole scene
Well,
is awesome.
the whole aspect of Kylo and Rey. I mean, I thought the moment that they were showing a connection throughout the galaxy
Hmm.
between them and the conversations they were having, I thought that was really cool.
I thought it was
I,
awesome. It goes
I
back
thought
to
that
my
was really
point
well
about
done too.
it goes back to my point about them saying, okay, the old movies were the old movies. This is the new story. Kylo and
That's
Rey are the
fine.
new
I
people. They're
I
having
get
this
that.
weird connection, and I loved that it's like neither of them have teachers that really know anything about the Force. Just like Luke didn't really. I mean, he had Yoda, but only for a short time. Um, but it's not like in the prequels when the Jedi were trained, meticulously from a young age. Neither they both just recently, Rey even more so, came into their Force powers, and they're just both kind of figuring it out on their own. Neither of them really know what's going on when they first start having these connections. Thought it was great. It's like two young people figuring it out on their own. They've got this weird connection, weird power. I loved every scene that they had that weird connection. Thought it was absolutely awesome.
Yeah,
They had a lot
and it
of
culminated with that lightsaber scene. It was
yeah.
just amazing.
So that scene to start off with, I loved them going up in the elevator. It was it was a callback to Luke and Vader going up in the
Return of
elevator,
the Jedi.
and Luke
Yep.
is saying, "Look, there's still light in you. I see it. You're gonna turn. I've seen it in the future." And Vader's like, "No, you're gonna join me." Yada yada. It's the exact same scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and they get up there, and she pulls a Luke and doesn't try. Well, does she? I think she does try to fight. She does. Does she like lunge at him or something before he force chokes her? Snoke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Well, she tries it twice. First, he removes the lightsaber from her hand, and then she grabs Kylo Ren's lightsaber, and she chokes him again.
okay. He
He
chokes her
chokes
again.
her
Okay.
again. Yeah.
But anyway, so then, Kylo's about to kill her. And one of the things that I noticed the first time I watched it, some people didn't know, is that while he's twisting the lightsaber, so I saw some people say, oh, well, why didn't Snoke realize the lightsaber was being turned and killing him? So Snoke, obviously, first of all, he's very arrogant. He's basically putting down Kylo in front of Kylo, just like Palpatine did to Vader, said he's weak, yada yada. Um, but Kylo is twisting his own lightsaber at the same rate and time he's twisting that other lightsaber. So kind of
Yeah.
like Snoke is reading his mind, but he doesn't know because Kylo's doing both things at the same time.
Yeah.
Awesomely well
No,
done.
it
I
was done.
almost wish they wouldn't have made it so obvious that the lightsaber was turning to kill Snoke. Because while it was surprising, I was like, I can't believe they just did that. That's awesome. It was a little too telegraphed because there's like
Well, I think
6 seconds straight where the lightsaber's turning. But at the same time, while you're first seeing it, you're like, is he going to ignite it? Is Snoke going to figure it out?
exactly.
It's ugh.
Exactly.
So
I think the purpose of that was like for the audience to say,
to
"Nah,
that
surely
can't
that's not going to
happen.
happen."
Yeah,
And sure enough, when it does, everybody's like, "What
yeah.
the
I literally was
fudge?"
about to just start cheering in the theater because I thought it was awesome.
I was just
I
like, "What?"
Yeah, it goes back to the point. Like I said, what do we want? Do we want the same movies over and over? Do we want another movie where the final in the trilogy is they're going to try to turn Kylo against the big Emperor and yada yada? I love that they just said that's what you think is going to happen. It's going to be the good guy goes to turn the bad guy at the end, just like Return of the Jedi. Nope, the new bad guy is Kylo Ren. He's the big bad guy. Well, for right there you don't know it, but by the end of the movie you do. But
Yeah.
loved that they killed Snoke right there, and then that fight scene is awesome. It's visually stunning. Um, the moves that they do are awesome. The way they fight in tandem is awesome. The one where they ignite the lightsaber into the guard's eye, awesome. Literally, I just want to watch that scene over and over because it was so good.
Well, what
And
I
their
loved about it,
connection on screen, Kylo and Rey, even in the fight scene, amazing.
yeah, no, they've never fought alongside each other. They fought against each other,
Mm-hmm.
but not enough to know how each other moves. And yet you see it's almost a visual representation of how the force
That force
moves between
connection, yeah.
two people. But what I loved about it so much was it wasn't flashy and all choreographed like the
The
prequels were,
prequels,
and it wasn't like so stiff
mm-hmm.
and like unpracticed as the original trilogy.
Yeah.
This felt real, like it felt like
I felt the same way about Seven's lightsaber battles. So somebody was like, in the prequels, they're very acrobatic and flashy,
yes,
but it
very
feels
flashy.
super choreographed, and there's no tension in the fight at all
It
because
looks pretty, but it's
it
not
yeah, it's not
real. Doesn't
it
feel
doesn't
real.
feel like anything could happen at any moment with
Right.
like, there's a in 7 the fight between Rey and Kylo is very, Kylo is extremely savage the way he uses the lightsaber. Very
Yeah.
you can see the anger in the way he uses the lightsaber, whereas like in the prequel Darth Maul just looks like an acrobatic freak, which he is. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's not you can feel the character of Kylo the way he swings the lightsaber.
Right.
It's
It's
awesome.
it's another extension of his character. Like, yeah, it's
That's
a
the
side of
best
his
fight
character.
scene in any Star Wars movie ever by far. Not even
I,
close to
I
me.
agree. I agree.
Not even close. Awesome.
I agree.
And
That's why
then
it's my number one favorite part of the
yeah,
movie.
and then the scene after where they have their Vader Luke moment where
They're
he
ripping the
says,
lightsaber apart.
no, where he's, she's like,
Don't do
uh,
this.
yeah, he's like, join me. And then for a brief moment, I was in the theater. I'm just like, first of all, I'm still in shock of the Snoke killing and then the amazing fight scene we see. I'm just like this, like, and then I'm thinking to myself, are they gonna make Kylo and Rey the new duo against the First Order? I'm thinking like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm a little upset that they didn't go that way, but it wouldn't really make a lot of narrative sense. There's no big bad guy at that point, so I
Mm-hmm.
get why they didn't do it. But I'm thinking like this is the greatest thing ever, and they're like, join us, and he's like, kill the past, yada yada, and I'm like, okay, it actually goes with it. They've killed the past, yada yada. All he has to do is call off the shots on the the First Order. Which, if they would have done that, they could have ended the movie right there, and I would have been happy. He could have
Mm-hmm.
been like, General Hux, stop the bombardment, and then if they would have cut to credits at that point, I would have been like, best movie of all time. But they didn't. Like I said, it makes sense because there's no big bad guy if Kylo's not the big bad guy anymore. But that scene, one of the best Star Wars scenes of all time. Just a great cinematic movie scene.
Yeah.
I don't see any gripe possible with that.
No, I had nothing negative to say about that whole scene.
Yeah, Kylo's the best Star Wars character ever, in my opinion. I think Han's second, and nobody else is close. Kylo is
He's
extremely conflicted. You can see the confliction on his face in every move he makes. You sympathize with him. You sympathize with a character who killed Han Solo in cold blood, Bobby. The fact that you can sympathize with a character that killed Han Solo should tell you all you need to know about how good that character is in a sense of character development, not in a good guy bad guy sense.
you know
He's the best Star Wars character ever by far.
I beg to differ, but it's
Who's
okay. I mean,
who's better?
he's uh, I
Han's the
mean,
only acceptable answer, real quick. So if you say anybody else, you're obviously wrong. Uh, but Han's not even as good as Kylo.
if we're talking about a full scale character, we still have yet to see. Because to me, Kylo's too much of a little boy right now. Like he's still acting like a little boy,
That's a
and
great part of his character is that he's
and
now the powerful supreme leader, and yet
he's
he
a
still has anger
what's
issues because dark side of the force.
he's a freaking Joffrey with a lightsaber, man.
No, he's not vindictive,
Yeah,
malicious like that. He is pissed at the world, and he has good reason to be. His uncle tried to kill him. His dad abandoned him. Um, you know, the world has given him nothing. He doesn't know the world anything. By the way, that reminds me. The Speaking of the world has given him nothing, the reveal of we talked about it before. Ray's parents. Once again, I thought it was amazing. That little dialogue where they're talking to each other, and he says, "Oh, I've seen your parents. You know who they are. You've known the whole time. They're nobody. They're nothing." And then he's like, you don't have a place in this story. You're nobody. You're nothing, but not
but
to
not to
me.
me.
Oh
No,
my God. Such a good line. The way he delivered it, too, is just
no. Adam Driver's a good actor, man.
loved it.
I don't mind his acting at all.
That,
Obviously, that's why I
yeah,
like Kylo and Ren's relationship so much. I just as far as being, I don't know. I'm not there with you yet as far as him being the best Star Wars
it's
character.
not debatable. You're just
We'll
wrong
see.
on that then.
Okay, that's
You'll
fine.
figure it out
That's
sooner or
fine.
later.
Sure, sure. What's the second one?
Um, Luke is the second thing. The fact that we get more Luke and
Yeah,
the final scene that he did, which like I said, I think we both talked about Luke a lot.
yeah.
I loved his character completely. You loved his ending action and kind of understood what he did. Um, yeah, I loved it.
I was still happy that we got him. Period. I mean,
Yeah,
if he would have been again in the first 5 minutes of the movie and then died, that would have really pissed me off.
yeah.
And this would have been the last in my last place as far as the movie is
Gotcha.
concerned.
We'll do rankings at the very end of this,
Yeah,
and we'll defend him a little bit. But and then the third one you said is space battles, and I agree with you there. They pick up where seven left off with the awesome space battles,
yeah,
and seven. I guess it's less space battling and more
It was more in the air,
more in
in the
the on
air.
planets, yeah. But
Yeah,
Poe Dameron in Seven, when he shoots those like 10 TIE fighters in a row or something, even
yeah.
though you can say, oh well, he's just so good. First of all, there's a canon reason for that. He's kind of
He's not
force
even using
sensitive.
the force. Yeah.
He actually kind of is, Bobby. I don't know if you know this. For a guy who's read all the books, so he was raised. Luke, after six, goes and starts trying to find lots of old Jedi stuff because he's the last Jedi. He's trying to figure out Jedi traditions, etc. He finds two like Force trees that emanate Force power.
Oh
Um,
yeah, his parents were taking care of a tree. Yes, and I knew
and
that.
and Luke gets two trees, takes one with him, and gives another one to his good friend, who ends up being the mother of
Poe
Poe Dameron.
Dameron.
So Poe
Yes,
Dameron has a big force tree in his front yard his entire life. So, in
it
my
rubbed off
opinion,
on him.
in my
Maybe
opinion,
okay,
it's implied that he is strong with the force. One of the reasons is because of that. But like I said before, it doesn't matter. The force can be used, in my opinion, by anyone. Yada yada. It could just be that he's super skilled. But back to the point at hand, the fact that the space battles are awesome. Poe Dameron is the coolest space fighting character of all time.
he's awesome.
That opening scene, so cool when he's zipping around destroying the turrets, and it makes narrative sense too. Like my first reaction was like, they're really doing this whole one guy against the whole ship, but it's like they made sense. It's like, what are we gonna do? Fire on one ship with
But
big
if
cannons?
but even going beyond that, if you realize the way the movie starts is the way it ends, one guy versus the whole First Order.
Yeah.
So it was again as a movie. I will say it as a movie. It was a great movie. Uh, I mean, it had
So
great story.
standalone movie, what would you give it out of 10?
If we're going decimals, I'd give it a probably 7.8 out of 10.
Okay, wow, you're getting really specific there. I think it's
Yeah,
about about
it's a
eight,
little
eight
under eight.
five.
Eight.
I think Canto Bite brings it down.
Yeah, big time.
Everything besides that, to me, I think it's impeccable movie. The Rey and Kylo story is like a 15 out of 10. Um,
Yeah.
so, anything else we wanted to talk about before we just say our rankings of the? Do we want to do nine? Do we want to include Rogue One in there?
I'm including it because it's part of the story,
Okay,
but
real quick.
we can exclude it.
Couple things that we didn't talk about: the Force Cave, where Rey goes into the cave. Thought that scene was awesome. People
Yeah.
were upset because they didn't see her parents, or they were confused that she
So
saw herself. I think it doesn't matter at all. It was
doesn't
a
matter at all.
scene to
It was
show
her struggle.
her desperation and loneliness. I think
Yeah.
it was a great scene.
It was well done. It's well done.
Awesome. Very cool. We already talked about Luke and his arrogance. Thought that was one of the best parts of the movie. Chewie, R2, and Leia. I don't think they used Chewie and R2 basically at all, except for Chewie. That scene with the porg, which I thought was funny. He's like eating
I
the
thought the
porg.
porgs were done just right. It
Yeah,
wasn't too much. It wasn't.
yeah. People were really freaking out about how ridiculous porgs were going to be before the movie came out, but they were just they weren't.
Well, I was told just the other day why they used the porgs or why they even put the porgs in,
I heard that
and
too. Go
and
ahead.
now I'm like, well, then that was a stroke of genius. Then to be able to deal with that situation of the puffins being
Yeah,
inside the
so
island
the for people who don't know, there's like puffins on that island that they
all
filmed
over
all
the
those scenes
island,
on, and so they CGI'd them as porgs.
right? And
So
that's why
as
they had to
yeah,
put the porgs in
yeah,
there.
I heard that too. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, it's great.
Yeah.
The slave boy or the indentured servants at the end. So let's talk about that since it's the end of the movie and we didn't touch on it as much.
I didn't
That
think that was cheesy. I
No, no,
thought
no.
that was good.
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I said, they are us. Those little boys playing Star Wars. They're literally playing Star Wars, and they're all like, they are a representation of the audience. They're
Well, if you look
inspired
at the
by Star
silhouette of the
Wars.
little boy, like you said, it represents Luke Skywalker or any other Jedi out there. It's
Hmm.
a guy holding a lightsaber.
Yeah, and then the
That's
little
what it
force
looks.
grab, with the
Subtle
broom,
force grab.
subtle.
Yeah.
And that was another thing where I was like, look, the force can be anybody. Uh, Force can do what it wants with whoever it wants, and then looks to the stars. Great great way to end it. That scene. Whenever I think about like him, looking up to the stars with the broom, it 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 kind of symbolizes the future of Star Wars. That this boy is looking into the galaxy and kind of sees, this. To me, that's what it kind of like I said,
Yeah,
symbolized. The future of
yeah.
Star Wars is right there.
It's an open
It's
universe.
an open, like I said, yeah, open universe. Anything could happen at this point. Literally anything could happen because the way they ended this movie, who knows where it's
It
going to
could go
happen.
anywhere. Yeah, but
And
that,
we'll talk about that another day, maybe this weekend. We'll make a
yeah.
video about what we want to see in episode 9. Um, but okay, so let's do rankings. You go
You know
first.
mine. Well, you know
Oh yeah,
mine.
you
Mine.
you
I'm
posted them.
sticking. I'm sticking with it. To me, the worst movie is Attack of the Clones.
Okay, yeah,
Period.
we'll go bottom up. So start Attack of the
Yeah.
Clones is the worst.
The worst one is Attack of the Clones. I mean, they just what could have been an awesome movie. It was horribly done. I mean, from the beginning of the movie to the very end where he's fighting Darth Tyrannus, it was horrible,
Mm.
horrible, horrible. The next one would be Phantom Menace. I did not like. Oh, I liked it a little better than Attack of the Clones, but yeah, 1 and 2 are just bad in my opinion. I believe I put after Phantom Menace. I think I put Last Jedi, um, and then I put. I'm gonna have to look at the list again. You have it in front of you, don't you?
Uh,
It's
is
the
it?
very it's the main post that I put.
Yeah. See, I think I just took your comment.
Let me see. Hold on. Let me see. Hold on. Let me go to my profile. Hold on. I got it right
You're
here.
good. One quick thing I want to note while we're doing it, you have like the black hood on. We got some white
Yeah.
headphones. It kind of perfectly synergizes with your evil and wrong in this conversation, and I'm good and
Uh huh.
correct in all of it.
Right. 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 Uh huh. Now I'm showing true balance of the force, the light and the dark.
Gotcha. Now that you've got the
Um,
light, yeah, in your face.
why? Okay, it's not coming up, man. Sorry.
No problem.
Uh,
So after Last Jedi, you have what?
I think I then have Revenge of the Sith,
Revenge of the Sith. Okay.
and then I have Rogue One, I
Okay.
believe, and then I have the Force. No, I think I have Return of the Jedi, and then I have Force Awakens, and then I have A New Hope, and then Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie.
Okay. So my ranking is Attack of the Clones is the worst because Anakin and Padme's relationship is so bad and so
Or
forced and so terrible.
worse than
Uh,
Finn and
the
Roses.
rest of the movie is obviously also bad, but that just like it's not just a bad movie; it's a bad movie, and then it's terribly acted and written, and it's just
Every,
really
everything.
bad movie.
Yeah.
Um, Phantom Menace is a little bit over that because it's not as poorly acted, but the script is boring. The whole thing is boring.
Yeah.
It's just a boring movie, except for the Darth Maul fight, which, like we said, it's flashy and kind of cool, but that's it.
Yeah.
Then Revenge of the Sith, because the acting is bad, but the story is kind of cool. Palpatine is well acted. Um,
Palpatine's probably the best part of the movie.
yeah, best part of the movie. And without him in the movie, it would be probably like non-savable. Um, but it's still like a 3 out
You
of
have to
10
admit the
movie.
lightsaber fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan was pretty awesome though.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. That's the only good lightsaber fight in the prequels, and it's like we said, the Darth Maul one's all right, but it's just a bright spot in an otherwise terrible movie. The
Yep.
lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin's pretty cool. It goes on for a little long for
It's a little
me.
too long.
It's a little
Yeah.
long, but still good. Then after that, I would say Return of the Jedi. So
Okay.
Return of the Jedi has some of the best scenes in the trilogy, in the original trilogy, with Luke, and some of the worst scenes with Ewoks. Um, I don't have a problem with the Ewoks fighting the Empire. I think that's fine, but they're just so hokey and over the top. There's too many. It's too weird.
It brings the level down
Brings
quite a
the
bit.
tension level down. Which a lot of
Yeah.
people said that about the Last Jedi, which I didn't find that was the case. That some of the jokes brought the level of tension down in the movie. I didn't get that at all. But a lot of people did have that. But that is an issue with me in Return of the Jedi. Then Rogue One is slightly better than Return of the Jedi. Rogue One's just a good acted, written, shot movie. I don't think it's, if we're talking like the best Star Wars movie in the Star Wars universe, I don't think it's that great of a Star Wars movie, but it's a great movie.
Hmm.
Um, and
I
so I
think
have
what
it
Rogue
there.
One, I think what Rogue One did well was it wasn't about Jedi and Sith.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a
It's like a
story
world building story.
within the universe
Yeah,
exactly,
no, I thought it was great.
and
And then
I thought they
that
did a good
scene
job with
with
that.
that scene at the end with Vader is one of the best scenes. Period. It's
That's the
just
scene that
awesome.
made the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, then after Rogue One, I've got uh, Force Awakens. Great movie, very well acted,
Yep.
well written, fun. A
Yep.
little too reliant on uh, nostalgia, um, but overall good movie. Then I've got Empire, which is I think the most overrated movie. Which is not to say it's not a good movie. I have it very high on my list, at third overall. Um, but Empire Empire is awesome, but it's so awesome because A New Hope is so awesome, and it just builds off of that. Which is I've heard about that's a bad argument because of course it's a sequel. It has to build on the first one. I don't buy it. I think A New Hope is way better. But before A New Hope, I have Last Jedi as the second best. Canto Bite's bad. Holdo's questionable. The use of her character. Trying to think any other gripe I have with the movie. Phasma. We didn't even talk about Phasma. That's
That's how forgettable she
that's
is.
how forgettable. Such a shame too because Gwendolyn Christie is such an amazing actress.
Well,
And
if you read the book, or if you ever read the book
yeah,
Phasma, you'd be a lot
I hear
more
she's an
pissed off.
awesome character in that,
She's a very
but
awesome
they
character.
make her out to be such a shitty character in the movie.
Useless,
She's
useless.
so cool looking. The lines of dialogue she delivers are awesome, and then it's like, well, she loses. It's frustrating, and I think everyone I know is frustrated that they don't use
Yeah,
Phasma
yeah.
more. But other than that, I think it's one of the best movies, and probably standalone wise, it's the best movie technically and script wise and fun and all of them. But A New Hope is number one for me. It's just a great movie. It never stops being good. It starts out. It's a very tropey movie, hero's journey kind of thing. But it just starts out compelling. You care about the character Luke. You care about what he's doing, and the whole time you're just like engrossed in the story. You love it. Han Solo comes in. You love that character. There's the love triangle, between uh, Luke, Leia, and Han, which it sounds weird saying now because of where they went with Luke and Leia, but
Right.
it's great. It's not overly sexualized or anything, but it's a cool relationship. It's the hero, the girl, the comic relief with the droids and the Wookiee, the space battle, the Death Star. The fact that that's the first movie and the Death Star represents evil at the end. It's just a perfectly done movie, and that's why A New Hope standing on its own is like just a good movie regardless of what you're talking about, whether you're in the Star Wars fandom or you're saying just action movies in general in history. It's one of the best action movies ever just because it's just great. There's I mean the worst things you could say about it all boil down to technical limitations of the time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you could almost switch back and forth. In my opinion, you could switch back and forth Empire or New Hope. That's why they're the top two for me
Yep.
too. I mean, New Hope, you can leave a New Hope by itself, and it's its own movie.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why I personally put Empire Strikes Back a little higher up, it's not because we find out Vader's Luke's dad.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. You it had the impossible task of meeting what New Hope did
Mm-hmm.
because at the
And
time New
and did
Hope
it.
was like revolutionary. I
Yeah.
mean, that's that it was like, okay, there's no way they're going to make a better movie than this.
Yeah, nobody
And
had done space opera like
no,
that.
and
Yeah.
and to take the characters from where they left off and still progress them the way they did,
Hmm.
that's the only reason why I give it a little, because what it had to do, I
It
mean,
did it.
okay, yes, what it had to do, I think it did.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to say it was a harder task than what A New Hope did, because again, New Hope with all, I mean, you look at all the backstory of the New Hope, man, it had everything against it. There's no reason
Yeah.
New Hope should have
Yeah, I've seen a
succeeded.
documentary about the movie being made. It's
It's
none of the
it's
actors took it seriously.
no, they thought it was a joke.
Yeah,
Everyone laughed at George Lucas's
yeah.
face, and for it to have succeeded the way it did, that's why it's like, man, they're both two awesome movies.
Mm.
I get why people like New Hope better than Empire. I just to me the transition that it went from the beginning of the scene where Luke's still kind of figuring his way out to where at the end he's becoming a Jedi. I just it's you see the progression of the characters, and I think I like it better. But
Hmm.
yeah, I agree with you. New Hope on its own is just an amazing movie.
So real quick, you have The Last Jedi as a worse movie than Revenge of the Sith, which is after everything we talked about, I feel like you liked The Last Jedi a lot more than you are willing to admit that you liked it. And I think over time it will rise in your rankings because
Well,
I think some of
uh,
the things you,
if this is my list concerning the Star Wars universe,
yeah,
if we're talking about movie quality and movie just yeah, just the movie quality and the movie story and the movie characters, movie acting, etc. Obviously, my list would change.
hmm,
There's no doubt about that. Again, as a movie, I've said this over again. As a movie, The Last Jedi, I liked it and I thought it was a really well done movie.
yeah, for a 7.8 out of 10, that's obviously a good score to give to a movie. We're
Yeah,
kind of in the
no,
day of
like
age
even
that if you don't give something a 10, people think you hate it. But
yeah,
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 no,
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even give Empire Strikes Back a 10 because there's still flaws in Empire Strikes Back.
yeah, I think A New Hope is a
But
10 for me. Honestly, I
yeah, well,
think it's 10.
I I wouldn't argue that.
I
It's a
I
great movie.
watched it again earlier this year, and I'm just sitting there the whole time thinking like, wow, it just still holds up.
It still holds up. That's the word. Yep. Yep.
And
So
it's not one of those movies like the prequels. What they did way too much is like exposition and try to explain the world to you. Episode four,
they didn't have
none of
to do
that.
that.
It's like they're on a
Yeah.
spaceship. Deal with it. There's a giant
Yeah.
spaceship that can destroy planets. So we don't need to explain this to you. You don't need to.
No.
Uh,
And even the Force,
yeah,
like Obi-Wan explained the Force in
he
like
explains it in like
3 minutes.
two sentences. Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
and
So
Luke goes from getting shot with a stun gun to immediately being able to deflect lightsaber bolts with a lightsaber,
yeah,
or bolts with a lightsaber. Uh, so and everybody's just fine with it. I mean, you know,
it is what it is.
it is yeah, great movie. Um, but yeah, so that was an hour and 42 minutes of our discussion of Star Wars: Last Jedi, and there's more to talk about too. I'm sure we missed quite a
There's a
bit.
lot more. Yeah.
But luckily, we have the Han Solo movie next, and like I said, we'll talk about our hopes and dreams for Episode 9. Maybe we'll do some title predictions or something too. We can do that movie or that video a little bit later. But it's getting kind of late. I'll let you go and have a good weekend.
All right, man.
We'll
You
talk to you
too. This was fun.
for sure.